This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Find great deals faster.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. This podcast is designed by real people on their journey to achieving financial freedom, and we'll focus on people who've either already attained it, who are joining us on that journey, or maybe a specialist topic that can help you build your technical knowledge to achieving and maintaining that financial freedom. We hope you enjoy it.
Right, so welcome back to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today, we have one of our 6-round episodes where we interview someone who has either achieved financial freedom or is on the journey to achieving their financial freedom. Today, we welcome to the studio Ashley Lindsay. So Ashley started in property 6 years ago after a major or a fairly major business fail, which left him £150,000 in debt. He started with a rent-to-rent business and now either owns or controls 30 properties with about 180 tenants with his partner Rachel, and he is also the host of a property networking event called Property and Poppadoms in Huddersfield. So welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Do like a Poppadom, have to say.
Yeah.
I've not been to a Property and Poppadoms event.
Unfortunately, the Manchester one is
on the same night as ours.
So we
decided to compete with us. So
we haven't got one. So we know that which one's better to come to. But I'm sure the one in Huddersfield is great to get to because it's the other part of town. So yeah, great to have you. So we always kick off with just a little bit of an icebreaker. So with an interesting fact about yourself. So the one that we've got for you today is, so apparently you had to, or you did, or I don't know if you had to or you did, but you evicted a tenant that had a bit of alcohol addiction, and you ended up taking him to stay with you at your house to help him recover. Is that right? Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well,
And what happened?
HMO tenants, they don't always tell you the full history when they come to see you. And this guy had broken up with his wife, which is how it is, and seemed like a really nice guy for a few months until I got a call from the mental health nurse in the room next door who said, I think he needs to come round. And I went in and he was just collapsed on the bed, and he'd been drinking a litre of whiskey a day.
Oh, geez.
And initially I tried to help him. I'd go around, and he's a really nice guy. I'd gone out to him, with him to rugby and things. He'd had a 70 grand a year job in recruitment, and he was a really nice guy, but he'd got a serious problem.
I'm going to know this guy 100%. I'd spent 20 years in recruitment.
Yes, I got to know him quite well, and then we had this problem. So initially I tried to help him by getting to eat to start off with, and I was going around every day and like making him soup and bread and things. And he wasn't a problem for the other housemates. He kept himself to himself, but he kept falling down the stairs and things, and it just wasn't right. So we evicted him, but he didn't have anywhere to go. So we asked him to come and stay with us. So he stayed with us over Christmas for 2 months, and we got him back on his feet.
So did he recover a bit in that time, or?
We managed eventually to get him to cut down to a level where and nearly stop, but he had an ongoing problem, so eventually
very difficult to
caught up with him, but
to resolve.
But we tried.
So we're in your terms and conditions then with your clients. At which point does obviously you start with your property management fee, your tenant management fee. Where does home care and help? You know, what's your fee structure for taking the tenants back to yours and
fee structure?
Well, it's one of your own tenants. Well, it's one of your own tenants.
I'm only joking. Yeah.
Well, I think when we first started, we had lots of people like this person, and you sit at the sort of lower end, you find lots of people who've got lots of problems, whether it's alcohol or depression, and quite often I ended up, the really good people were just in a bad place, and I just ended up, because we've got quite close relationship with people and know all of our tenants, then you see someone in trouble, you just try and help them.
Yeah. Well, HMO with decent facilities suits a certain environment, and that is either you're a student, or you're leaving being a student, or you in a new location, just got a job,
professional,
or divorced dad.
Yeah,
and we have a significant number,
quite a lot of divorcees and divorced dads and stuff like that, who are living
HMOs who with nice facilities, nice people, but they've been through some trauma there, right?
Yeah.
So we also see it. To be fair.
Yeah. But don't do this at home.
Interesting. Very, very nice thing you were doing to help that person recover.
So did you know him before you took on the management?
No, but it was. But yeah, we had probably more things in common than I've had with many people. American football and rugby and music and film.
Yeah.
And we had lots in common.
Yeah, fair enough.
Interesting.
Good for you.
Right, so that's a good icebreaker to start off with. So just moving on to our first main question then. So just want to know a bit about your sort of background, your story, and everything like that.
Okay. Well, I suppose I've always been entrepreneurial. I remember waiting to be 12 so I could have a paper round, and I was desperate to be able to buy video games and things.
All right, so all of us did a paper round. We did a paper round,
yeah.
So I had,
80s and 90s.
I think I was 13, so not, very similar.
Yeah, I was desperate. And so, I had a morning paper round, an evening paper round. I did the weekly one that just wasn't worth doing, but it was money.
Penny a paper.
Maybe half a penny. And then I got my own Sunday paper round, which I bought. I can't remember how much I bought it for, £100 or something. And I built, when I was 14, I think I got that. So I get the papers from John Menzies and put all the supplements in them. And I built that round up from being, I don't know, about 100 papers to being like over 250. And I was earning something like £40 a week when probably off a morning's work when at that time, 35 years ago, then, £150 wasn't a bad wage for a week.
Decent money for a 12-year-old.
Yeah, 14. But I was doing...
or 14.
Because I never understood the John Menzies thing. Because I did morning, evening, and then I had a Sunday round, but it was for the paper shop. I got paid more, but I was paid like £6.50 or something for the Sunday round on its own, and I was paid like £7.50 for like the evening round for the week. When it's Friday, and then the Saturday, the morning one was the big one. That paid me like £11 a week. So,
and I did 270 messenger papers in Australia, and I got $10 for that, and I lived in a really hilly area. But then every extra advert that went into it was $5. So you got 3 or 4 adverts. Like, whoa, this is a big ad.
Yeah. Supplements were heavy though, right? Those bags are brutal.
They got heavy. Yeah, it got heavier and thicker. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of cash as well. It was all cash left under stones on people's doorsteps in those days. I don't think you'd get away with that these days. All disappear.
Yeah. Did you do the knock on the door? I'm your paperboy Christmas tips.
Absolutely. Yeah. Big week, Christmas. Yeah, Christmas box they call it in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Do you want your Christmas box? It was So I got like 3 rounds. So I was if I didn't have them on the Sunday round, then I was getting them on my morning or my evening.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, Christmas was good. And I think like schooling, I was really good. I was intelligent, shall we say, at school, but never motivated. It was all a bit too easy.
Yeah.
Or it was for a while. And so I was really proud of having A's for attainment and 5 for effort. So I didn't try, got A's all the time, but then that kind of came and bit me when I got to my GCSEs and realised, actually, there's a lot of coursework and you have to learn. So left school and probably dropped out of college quite quickly because I was just bored with, I needed a year out, but 30 years ago you didn't have.
No, it wasn't an option, was it?
You didn't have gap years.
You couldn't do a gap year, is what you mean, travel around the world.
No, that's what I needed, just some time out. And so quite quickly I ended up becoming a dad at 19 and asking my dad for a job, which you do in his furniture business. And I think, and it's probably one of my later points, but you've got to, one of my learnings in life is be careful where you plant your acorn, because when you're young, you plant it in the wrong place and that tree grows wider and more solid, you end up stuck in that job. So just
hard to move it.
Be careful where you plant it. So we had a furniture business, which ran successfully for, I don't know, probably 15 years until I managed to find a way to break it. And I broke it quite a lot. Ended up with that £150,000 debt, personal guarantee on a on a business loan for a biomass boiler, which has been the bane of my life. But got past that, and yeah, I don't know. I've lost myself a little bit now. I need my numbers.
Yeah. No worries. So
Excellent.
we'll bring you back. Let's.
Thanks for that. So
So the bit,
as we move forward, we talk about financial freedom, name of our podcast, our brand, and things like that. But it means different things to different people. So what our first question that we always kick off with is, what does financial freedom mean to you? You know, what is it to you?
So I think first of all, I think financial independence is the time when you've got a business that is earning you enough money to not have to work in it. So my definition of that, and I think going back to the paper round, that when I had a paper round, everybody said, oh, he's going to be a millionaire, you know, he's making this money now on a Sunday. And I always sort of felt an element of pressure because I don't think I've ever achieved that. So when someone said then he'll be a millionaire, effectively what they were saying is he'll achieve financial freedom at some point in his life. So for me, the first step is financial independence, which we're pretty close to, where at the moment we work in our business, but very soon we'll be putting a property manager in place. And at that point, if I have to spend a couple of hours a week with that person just reviewing how things have gone, then I'd say that that's financial independence. I think that, so I'm not spending any time on the business really, but it is a business and it has moving parts. And I see financial freedom as the time when you've sold all your properties, you've put all of the money into the S&P 500, and you're earning double the amount of money that you need to live on. To me, that's freedom. Then you've got freedom to do anything that you like.
interesting.
Yeah, because we do get some differing.
So why would you sell all your property and then put it in the S&P 500? What's that? Where does that come from?
I'm not saying I would necessarily do that, but while there are moving parts, while there's a business, while there's hundreds of tenants, while there are properties that can have leaks or fires or anything can go wrong.
It's noise and time that's taking up, is what you're saying. Whereas you're sort of saying your financial freedom, where it's in the S&P 500, is more of a passive type investment earner than your financial independence definition, which is more that you're doing what you're doing, but you've got people to run it almost, and you're saying you can just sort of oversee those people. So
if I just maybe I rephrase the question so we can answer it. Yeah, because I don't know whether I asked the question right, because I think you're explaining the question I asked. So the question was more, why would you sell your properties, which we see as an asset class for financial freedom, to then put it into the S&P 500?
I wouldn't necessarily want to do this, but I would say that would give you freedom, total freedom. So, so if you sold all of your properties and you've got that amount in the bank and that amount pays you interest and you live on less than that interest, to me, that's the definition of freedom. But for most people, financial independence is more than good enough. And the same with the S&P 500. That's just a good way of storing your money where it can grow.
Yeah. So what I think you're getting at is that the S&P 500 investment, it takes up less time than, say, having the properties. Is that sort of what you're saying is definition? Yeah, no,
less
that's great.
risk, or
I think if you take it over a long period of time, then yes, in any given year, anything can happen. But if you look at if you're in there for the long haul and you're not watching what the value of your shares is every day and you just let it all happen, if you look over a 40-year period or any 40-year period, then you're getting some significant gains in there.
And you're buying a dividend-paying asset class here to pay your bills.
Yeah, I would say that my understanding is that the best way to do that, don't have any shares in anything at the moment other than myself, is that just putting it into an index fund is the safest way. Warren Buffett says that when he dies, all of his money.
Yeah, because
So
if you
his
say the S&P
findings-
500, in essence, you're investing in the top 500 businesses of North America or the USA, basically, is what you're saying. So you get all the best businesses, and it's diversified and all those sort of things. So
You're also paying are people, the best minds in the world in all of those businesses are working to create value for their shareholders. And if you get somebody in there like a Kodak that messes up, they drop out.
yeah,
And
they fold, and overall, if it is a large company, the share will go down as a result for a certain period of time. But like you said, if someone else comes in and it recovers, and etc.
So if somebody comes in, so Kodak drop out, or I'm trying to think, Blockbuster drop out, Netflix come in. So you've always got a slice of the top 100 companies in the world. And so I would say that is true financial freedom. Whether I actually want to do that, my personality doesn't.
The only other thing to expand on, I think what Phil's question is like, if you've got, say, properties that are cash flowing assets, you get paid every month, whereas an index fund, I think what you're saying is if you've got a dividend paying one, that's what pays you. Or if you don't, then you, in essence, you would have to sell a certain amount to pay money into you.
Because a lot of shares are stick and hold, and you don't make an income from them. But there are asset classes and share classes that you can buy, which are dividend paying, which will pay you an income.
But I do agree, it can be very, very passive, because if maybe you're just topping it up a certain amount of time, you put some money in it, but that's all you really need to do, because it's just literally tracking that fund. So great definition. We do get lots of different definitions and things for financial freedom. So good to hear. And
independence versus freedom.
And financial independence as well is the different terminology. So where on your financial independence journey, then where are you at the moment, or where do you feel you're at?
Very close to independence.
Yeah.
At the moment, we've got a big project. We bought 10 properties last year, quite big HMOs, and we had to buy them on bridging. So at the moment, we're on it's about 13% annually. When that reduces to 6.5%, then that's going to all of that interest on significant sums going to be sitting in our bank account every month. And at that point, we're definitely financially independent.
Yeah.
We'll have more money than... I'm quite a frugal person anyway.
You need to be able to live off, is it?
Yeah, a lot more money than we actually need.
Yeah.
Then by putting a property manager in place at that point, then that becomes a lot more passive.
Yeah. This leads very well into our next question, because which is basically about like what strategies have you used to get to your financial independence, your financial freedom, or where you're getting to now. Do you want to explain some of the strategies you use and are using to get there?
And why you used them?
Yeah, and why?
Of course.
Yeah.
So 7 years ago, previous business failed. I had a hell of a lot less than zero. And I genuinely, at that point, I would walk past Greg's and not be able to go in and buy a coffee. I really had to think about my pounds. And I tried a few different business ideas, but the one that sort of stuck was rent to rent. So how do you make money without any money? Never worked for anybody before, probably wouldn't be a very good employee, because I'd probably have ideas that my boss wouldn't want to hear because
or listen to.
And so rent to rent was the strategy that stuck. And at the time, the first property was the worst house on the worst street. And it was in a bit of a mess. And we had nothing. So we filled the first room, as in we put secondhand furniture in the first room. And with the rent from that, we bought furniture for the second room. But it turns out that rent to rent is a really good strategy. We refined it. We had the worst house, the worst street, the worst landlord, a dodgy agent, a leaking roof, loads of problems.
Sounds fun.
Living the dream. So I think in the first year when we started, so 2019 is when we really properly started. And just by going on Rightmove and talking to local agents, we managed to get, I think, 9 3-bedroom houses that we converted the lounge into a bedroom and got them running that way. But I see rent to rent as more. Some people see rent to rent as like a dirty term. It's like a get your hands dirty, and it's a bit, they don't like it.
So for anybody listening, that who doesn't know the term rent to rent, you're basically renting a property off a landlord for agreeing a fee with that person for a period of time, and then you are going to use that property for your purposes and rent it onwards for that purpose. And the difference in what you pay the landlord and what you make is your profit
and your other costs. And I think what you're saying is it's a rent to rent with HMO because you're splitting up the rooms and then renting the rooms individually.
Yeah. So the advantage for the landlord is that generally we take over all the maintenance and he's got complete hands off. Probably get a little bit of a discount because he's not going to have any voids and would normally.
He doesn't have the usual hassle that you'd have looking after it, managing it.
Yeah. And we then rent the rooms out, bills included. So the tenant gets a good deal as well.
Yeah.
But I see rent to rent as a really good strategy because what I see it as rent to relationship to purchase. And I think that we've got 15 rent to rents at the moment, and I'm sure that 8 or 9 of those we will buy at some point because any landlord that is on the cusp, they're happy to rent it to you long term. They've probably had this property for a number of years, might have rented it to students, made the money, but now as more regulation comes in, then they don't want the hassle anymore. They've made the money, now they just want a nice steady income, and that's where we step in.
And have you agreed those terms already, or have you, because there's obviously the option which is similar, which you can do purchase agreement up front and then use the property for your purposes, or have you just gone with a straight rent to rent agreement?
Rent to rent, I think it depends. Sometimes when you get to know a landlord start off with, then you don't know their 10-year plan. But what we did to start off with, probably worked better than anything else, was, well, we'd got one property and we'd go on spare room and look for at other properties that needed tenants, and we'd ring the landlords and we'd say, our properties are all full, all 4 rooms. Can we do some tenant finding for you? By doing that, we found, we built a relationship. So we charged someone £200 to fill a room for them. And then we got to know them. And over a period of a few months, then a lot of those turned into rent-to-rent deals just from tenant finding. And I think 13 of them.
And these are self-managed landlords? So they're self-managing?
Normally self-managing, sometimes with an agent that wasn't performing for them.
Right.
Because professionals, certainly in where we are in Huddersfield, then there aren't any specialist HMO agencies for professionals, lots of people that can do students. But yeah, 10, well, in the end, 13 of them became options, and we've completed on 12 of those. So
12 properties or 12 total HMOs, is it?
So we bought 12 HMOs and there's another one that's an option that we've yet to
Yeah. So of your 130 rooms that you own or control, what percentage do you have as rent to rents where you don't own the property, and then how many do you own yourself now?
So I would say it is, it's around, so we've got 180 rooms.
Sorry, 180.
Yeah, and 100, or just under 100 are owned, and 65 are rent to rents, and then we manage another.
And some other external ones. Yeah. So what would be interesting to know is why you started in rent to rent, because it sounds like you wanted to own the properties, and then how did you transition from that into this ownership where you've now got 110 was it rooms that you own and properties that you own?
I think a great deal of it was luck, that initially we were just looking to find a way to make any kind of money, and rent to rent was a way of doing that.
So at that point, were you not thinking of buying property, or did you always want to own property? I
think at that point I was just trying to put food on the table, in all honesty.
Yeah.
And it was a way that I could see that, so on average we can make, we aim to make £200 a room.
Yes.
After bills, but before any maintenance or voids or things like that. That's our sort of top line figure.
Yeah, so 200 after fixed costs, but not variable costs is a way to describe it, is it?
Yeah. And I think so I didn't have a master plan at the beginning, But as I saw it starting to work, and I started to understand what landlords wanted, and there are lots of landlords out there that have, as I was saying before, have made their money already, now just want an easy life.
Yeah.
And we could make that work for them.
I'm going to stop you a second. I'm going to talk about your luck, if that's all right. Because when everybody says I was lucky, I then want to understand what does luck look like. So talk to me about when. So you've gone through a massive trauma, I can tell, right? So you've gone through this massive trauma. This business has failed. You've done this biomass boiler. You've taken a loan agreement out. You're given a personal guarantee. And for those that don't know, a personal guarantee overrides a business. So if your business goes pop, you still owe the money for the personal guarantee. So you've been in that situation. You've then struggled to make ends meet. You talk about Greg's not being able to buy coffee, and then you've decided to look at property. How can I make money from property now? So what did you do, and how long did it take you to get to that first rent-to-rent deal?
I did a course to learn how to do it, to understand the mechanics and that it actually existed, and contracts, get the contracts. And
Who was the course with?
Progressive.
All right, yep.
And it wasn't the greatest course, but it gave me the nuts and bolts that I needed. And to be fair, getting that first property took a long time. The first one, I went into meetings, just said all of the wrong things, and so I smacked myself in the head when I came out. Like, why?
When you say a long time, approximately,
Oh, sorry. So
long?
Probably,
from when you started trying to find it.
I'd say it was nearly a year for the
Yeah.
first one, and it was 6 months for the next one, and then it was one every month.
Very interesting,
next.
because we had another guest who did a similar thing, but for this service accommodation sector, and they said a very similar thing. They spent almost the first year before they secured a similar type deal.
So you've been through this trauma, but you've not let it. You decided you have to move forwards. So you've invested in some training for yourself in a completely separate industry.
Mm-hmm.
You've learned that training. From that training, the fundamentals. You said it's not the best course, but you learned some
So good
fundamentals.
background knowledge. So
You've then tried to apply that for a period of 12 months
Mm-hmm.
and failed. I imagine failed, and then won.
I think
After-
it probably
after that
wasn't
period of
even
time.
fail. I think that, when you're in that sort of, shall we call it, like below zero mindset,
Yeah.
and you're struggling to even put food on the table, then it's just really difficult. Your head's full and you don't know what to do. And so at the time I was trying to do lots of different things.
Yeah, so you're trying to do lots of things because you've learned different strategies. You've been on a course. You've learned different stuff. You're trying to implement those things, right?
And you end up doing nothing. So
Yeah.
it was only when...
So you're doing too many things, but not focusing on one thing. Is that what you mean?
100%, yeah. I tried a direct consumer carpet business. I was looking at Amazon FBA. So yeah, just finding products that you can sell on Amazon, importing them, things like that. But I had no focus at all. So eventually I stuck on rent to rent. And once I'd got one thing to do, it was my focus, then we could do it quite quickly.
And once you secure that person, then you've stuck with that strategy or focus and kept doing it and improved it, I'm assuming, a lot over the last few years.
Yeah, and then ultimately it was just about building. Everything comes from relationships, really. Everything happens because of people.
Yeah.
And once I got to understand the issues that landlords had and how I could solve them, then I think we did 9 of the 3-bed houses, turned them into 4-bed HMOs, mini mirrors. And then we came across a couple of guys from London who'd got, well, it turns out they've got 10 properties, but we just found one that had been empty for 6 months. It missed the student cycle in September. We came across it in February, managed to find that, went onto land registry, found them. So this, in terms of luck, I made my own luck.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like luck.
Does not sound like
yeah.
luck at all.
Paying for training, implementing the training, trying all different strategies, which I imagine you might probably had some other trainings and other things like I did when I was first starting out and doing something entrepreneurial. Then you settled on a strategy, you implemented that strategy, got your first deal, it was in 6 months to your next deal, then it started to snowball. Which part of that do you think is luck?
I think the luck is finding 2 people that were prepared to sell us their properties allowing us to use the rent generated from those properties to form the deposits. However, the look, we made our own look.
Yeah.
I
By
put
doing
myself-
those things, taking the action, putting yourself out there, is that?
Yeah. So it was a lucky break, but if it hadn't been that lucky break, we would have probably found another.
Yeah.
Well, that then determines it, doesn't it? Because if you hadn't have found those two people, you would have continued and eventually come up with something else.
Absolutely.
So
It's a very good point because
it's not luck, is it?
It's not luck. And the example I could give that I did. So I learned in a course like you to do landlord letters to HMO owners. I did a lot of them with no results, but obviously I did the work. And then I went to view one that I didn't get, but the agent was there, said, "Oh, actually, I've got a much better one for you that I'm managing that is unlicensed, so it wasn't even on the register, so they didn't get a letter. And they're desperate to sell, and you can get it for a much better price, better location." And I got it. So it was like that lucky break was because I did that.
So
I always thought it was lucky.
it's a
I'm like,
common
Jesus
thing.
is lucky.
Like, the number of entrepreneurs I talk to, and they tell me, they say it straight away. It's, "Oh yeah, I was really lucky with that." You were not lucky with that.
You put yourself in the position.
You've put all of the tools in place. You've stepped out of your comfort zone. You've decided on a strategy. You've made lots of probably empty sales calls and visits and viewings that came to nothing, and said all the wrong things, like you said. And then eventually you've met somebody who's going to rent you a property, and you've made it work.
Sometimes
and that
it's a
one
bit
then
of a
gives you some
bit of a
credibility.
modesty type
and
thing
you
as
moved
well
on.
to say like, "Oh yeah, that was lucky." Like some
Yeah.
people have been really successful and things like that. It's a bit
I
of a modesty
100%
thing.
believe in luck, in the sense that there are many people out there that have got really successful businesses, but they don't appreciate that they had luck within their journey. You can have two people with exactly the same skill sets, exactly the same money, exactly the same knowledge. One's really successful because at some point they had an element of luck, and the other person is unsuccessful because they had all the same ideas, but they did it in a slightly different time period where there was a crash at the wrong time. And it's good to have your luck before you get to the bad luck. So if you've had some luck at the beginning and you can become established, then the bad luck won't kill you. And I think that, if you talk to Richard Branson, he'll say he was lucky. There were elements that at the right time, something happened that if it had happened 2 years later, probably wouldn't have existed.
Yeah,
So-
there is an element of a lucky break time.
But Richard Branson's had many business failures. It's not that's I would argue that he's lost a lot, but he's won more than he's lost.
Yeah.
So and that's not luck, that's perseverance. And that's the one thing I would take away, is that you continue. You continue to move forwards. Because if you wanted to talk about bad luck, you just mentioned, got this biomass boiler, took on a loan, business went bang. That's pretty much what I would define as bad luck, because everyone's talking about biomass boilers, about how great they are, and then you've turned around to do a property empire that sounds amazing.
But on luck, I would say that it wasn't bad luck. It was bad decision making on my part that led to that.
But that's you taking responsibility, isn't it, as well? Because
Bad decision making to good decision making, and perseverance. So you
perseverance.
Yeah, great.
Good.
Right, so then moving forward then, so we like to talk about, what people do in their day-to-day, lives, what sort of routines and habits they might have. So what does a typical day look like for you?
Typical day is up at 6, go for a walk, listen to a podcast, something that's educational, something like My First Million or the David McWilliams economics podcast or the property podcast. So as I'm walking, I'm habit stacking.
And I hope the Financial Freedom podcast as well sometimes.
Well, I watch that one, so I do that when I get home.
Oh, on YouTube.
right, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
The other ones are all.
That's a good save.
Well done.
So go for a walk, get in about 20 to 7. I do some, what's it called? Brain's gone dead.
Journaling, meditation.
What do I do in the morning? I do a sun salutation.
Right.
Which is a
what,
little,
sorry?
what is that? A sun salutation.
Sun salutation.
I got it from lots of when I read Ikigai, a book about how to find your purpose in life. Then
Right,
lots
yep.
of Japanese people
Yeah, we've
do
both
it.
read that book.
The sun
Blue
salutation.
zones.
Yep, it's great. And then from that, I got the sun salutation, which is some quite simple yoga,
body movements and things, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
only for me, it only lasts sort of 3 or 4 minutes, but it's a bit of stretching. But then also thinking of the things that I'm grateful for that day, and also looking at the 3 things that I want to do and get out of that day. Then I read a page of the Daily Stoic.
Nice.
The Stoics are all about how most things are outside your control. Don't worry about it. And I think that's just quite leveling. You know, it's a page for every day of the year.
It's really good, isn't it?
Do that, and then I have 2 hours focused, no phones, no. So from 7 until 9, 2 hours of what I call prime time, where I'm working on things that are important but not urgent. The things, and in my mind, any business that can work on those things is going to succeed. Most people are just running around doing the urgent things, whether they're important or they're not. And they never get round to the things that actually, if you...
So what you're saying is always things that are working on the business and not necessarily the in the business day-to-day tasks at those times. Is that right?
Things that most people are too busy to do because they're just chasing their
or
tails.
don't plan the time to physically sit down and do it. Yeah, excellent.
And then the rest of my day is relatively sort of free form. At the end of, I think, getting up at 6 and getting those things done is only possible by having a good end to your day. And lots of people say, I'm going to start getting up early and I'll get all this stuff done. But it's quite hard, particularly when you work for yourself. Nobody's telling you. You know, if you've got a plane to catch, it's easy to get out of bed. If you've got a job to go to where you're going to get shouted at, it's easy to get out of bed. You just have to.
You're expected to be your seat in the office or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, your routine's decided for you, isn't it? Ultimately, you just
So on that, do you use an alarm or do you not use an alarm for your 6 a.m. wake up?
I do use on. I have an alarm at 5:30,
Right.
and that's more of a just in case. I'm always going to wake up at that time anyway.
Yeah.
But then on an evening, I go to bed at 9 and I read for an hour. And normally I tried reading business books and things like that, and that doesn't relax
Too
your
late.
brain.
Yeah, I struggle at
too
night
late
doing
for
that
that.
as well. I much prefer to do that early.
So what's your genre then? What are you reading?
Well, quite often I read sporting biographies.
Nice.
But I can also read things about, just reading Matt Ridley, the Red Queen, all about genetics. And I can read that, but if it's business where I have to, because when I'm reading a business book, I want to retain all that information, then I just can't do that. And it doesn't relax me. Whereas reading something...
Does it keep you awake a bit longer if you do? Because I do get that if I'm out at a networking event or self-help book or something like that, I lay in bed a bit awake for a while.
So yeah.
It's not relaxing, is it?
No.
Not when you've been working on your business all day.
No.
And or in your business all day.
Yeah.
And you're reading about business at night. You need something, some other stimulus.
Yeah, I need the wind down time just for bed to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I suppose at night as well, if I do listen to it, on an evening I'll listen to a podcast more about sport or something like that, something that's, I don't need
You're
to
interested
digest.
in, like, hobby-wise, but not necessarily business-wise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Stop the podcast now. This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Property Filter is the #1 property tool for today's property professional. It brings in all the data points and sources from all the property portals and auction sites into one convenient place. Then you have the option to overlay all the clever strategies found in the Property Filter blueprint to find motivated sellers faster. Now, we use it on a daily basis. It saves us over 80% of our time when looking for properties. And if that sounds like something that you want in your lives, please go to register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB, which is the discount code for this podcast. You will get 2 weeks free and a discount on your first month. That's it from me. Back to the podcast.
Excellent. Great. So our next question is we like to talk about the successes and failures as well, because all the people we bring in, there's never really a straight line to success. There's always ups and downs, things like that. So what do we want to know is what on your journey to where you are now, what you are the most proud of on that journey, and also what is your biggest challenge and maybe a learning that comes with it that's come in your journey as well.
Biggest challenge was the coming back from minus 150k.
Yeah. So basically, so minus 150k to now 12 properties with 100 10 rooms that you own, basically, is a way to describe it. So in a what, 5 years?
5-6 years.
5-6 years. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd say that was the biggest challenge and the biggest thing to overcome. But I think at the moment, my biggest challenge for the last year and a half has been valuations on properties.
Yeah, and I know we've had a few discussions about that as well. And it is one of the biggest challenges that we find, as well as people, our clients, and other investors that we talk to. So it is a common challenge around the place because there's a big variance in valuation surveys and interpretation of values, isn't it? At the end of the day. Yeah.
Can we just? I don't want to pick at the scab a little bit here, but so talk to me. So we don't need to know the ins and outs of the business failure itself. But we know you told us it failed. Okay, you owed 150 grand. What are the steps? What happened to you? And after that point, once you decided I can't do anything here, something's happened, and then you've recovered. So because that to me is the challenge that you've overcome. So not why the business failed for any reason, but what fundamentally happened. You made a decision. I've got to close a business.
It's probably worth a little bit of context. I decided to push the business too hard. I had a perfectly fine business that was running well, but I wanted, and this is probably, in terms of financial freedom, why did I start the journey towards financial freedom? I think it was reading The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and he talks about being able to live, be location independent, and be financially free, have a business that earns for you while you sleep. And so having read that, I decided, well, I'm in this business, it's a family business. How can I make this run without me being there? And my sort of personality type is I'm very sort of system driven. And so I put all of the systems in place, mapped everything out, got the right staff in place, and then decided that to really make the business make money, it was in a big mill, football pitch size, 4 floors, but 2 of showrooms. And I thought, well, how can I make this really independent? And there's a business in West Yorkshire called Red Brick Mill, which is in a mill, very similar to us. And in there, they've got lots of independent businesses. And Red Brick Mill attract people. They do all of the marketing, using all of the different, so they've got lots of giftware and coffee shops and things like that. And so they get people going there for some nice food and some nice coffee that doesn't cost much, but then they see a £3,000 Natuzzi sofa or a G-Plan or a Temper, and they buy that. And so I thought, well, that's a better model than one I've got. At the moment, I have to do everything. I have to buy all of the furniture. I have to employ all of the staff. And wouldn't it be easier if I'd got all of these other businesses within there that I just promote it as a whole? So I, in my wisdom, which I should never have done, I decided to close the old business down. And we had an issue with the branding as well. We'd gone very quickly from being pilot high, sell it cheap to having all of the top brands. In about 5 years, when the furniture buying cycle's probably 10 years. So people who bought from us then, they didn't know how quickly we'd changed, and they wanted to shop at Barker Stonehouse or those big stores, and they weren't coming to us. So I thought, well, let's get rid of the business the name that everybody recognizes as being Pilot High, Sell It Cheap, and rebrand as At Home Mills with all of these departments. So we put in Heathcote and Brown, fine furnishings, and Moda, which was an Italian brand, and Bed Centre. We put a bistro in. We had a chef who'd worked in Michelin-starred restaurants. We put all of the giftware in, and we did all of this. But then the mistake was I ran out of money to be able to tell everybody about it. So I'd got this amazing store, the bistro was thriving, but I didn't have any money to tell.
So you didn't have the marketing budget after because of all the costs for the works, the refurbishment works, etc. Yeah.
So it went backwards, and the bank called a loan in on the building. So they kind of, put their stood on my head and told me what to do. So that was, and when you've been in a business that's been around for 20 or 30 years, it's quite difficult to close, really. It takes a long time. And we got hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of furniture. I still have dreams about it, like every other day. Even though I'm really happy, I'm past it all, I'm really happy with what I'm doing, there's all of that still sits there in the background.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess really my attitude to it all was just, well, I've just got to put one foot forward and another foot forward and just survive to start off with, and then get some money, and then look at where you are and go again. And it turns out rent to rent was a really good path out of that. So
Yeah, good.
So of that major challenge, what's the biggest learning that came as a result?
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would say, yeah. But I think in general,
Having said that, would you still be doing the same furniture stuff?
I didn't want to do that because it was.
No, but
even
would
though-
you? Would you still be doing it if you hadn't have made those choices?
No, I didn't want to do it. I wanted to get out of it one way or another. I saw that there needed to be an easy way. This is what I'm talking about. I was saying earlier about the careful where you plant your acorn. So I'd ended up stuck in this business.
Yeah.
And I felt that I'd made some massive changes within it, which if I'd made 10 years before, pre-internet, would have had a massive effect. But they were just keeping us standing still. All of the changes with the staff and things. But yeah, I realised that retail's not the easiest business. It's 7 days a week. It's constant. Everything changes all of the time. Fashions, trends, styles, customers. So
A couple of other basic questions without digging into it too deep. But did you have like a full, like a business plan with the numbers, like a forecast that reflected where that business was going? Because is one of the problems literally that you either went over your budget or because you ran out of money for marketing. So if you had an extra, whatever it is, 50 grand or something for that marketing, could it have been completely different, or was it because were the numbers inaccurate, or did it just overrun?
I think, in all honesty, my financial planning wasn't strong enough.
Right. Yeah.
But there were probably 90 ways it could have gone right and 10 it could have gone wrong.
Right.
Ultimately, some money should have come in at one point. It was delayed by 3 months, which meant that the works on refurbing the building
got delayed by
3 months, which meant we missed the window for ordering for Christmas, which was September, October, and we reopened on Boxing Day without any money, and we'd lost all of those orders. So, but yeah, ultimately it was there was no need to do it, and the planning wasn't accurate enough, really.
Yeah.
But that 3 month gap, I suppose that's luck in there, but ultimately I was taking on so much that and I was sailing really close to the wind.
Yeah.
Which meant that if you get a bit of bad luck or something doesn't quite go right, it
So
could have
quite a bit of risk.
Contingency's not there.
A bit of risk, maybe missing the back end contingency. Whereas you go off, because if you think like a building refurbishment, it's sort of like you can deliver in this budget, but you're better having that contingency because things can crop up and go wrong. And worst case, you spend that contingency and it's that sort of scenario maybe on.
Yeah.
Slightly different, I suppose, in your circumstance.
It was something, so I was good at selling furniture, marketing and displaying and employing the people. But this was a new thing, really. It was a huge project.
Yeah.
That lasted
for
sort of
anyone,
9
that is a
months. We put an orangery on, we completely shop fitted 2 football fields.
So
flooring. It was
big amount of
it's a
work.
big project, and so little things could have a big knock-on effect. And I'd not done 10 of them before, so
of course. Yeah.
Right, so moving away from them, what are you most proud of in your journey to where you are now?
I'm not really the sort of I don't know. I just do what I do, really. So I don't sort of pat myself on the back for many things. But I suppose if you look at it, then being able to come from nowhere to somewhere in that period, I think most other people would say.
To recover.
Well done.
Well,
Yeah.
really, you have recovered in a really, really strong way. Like, you maybe not think that totally, but anyone listening will think that is
There are people who are
really,
frozen.
really big
There are people who are frozen now
recovery.
who are in positive environments.
Yeah.
You were in a negative environment, right? So, and they haven't achieved what you've achieved. And if you're going to beat yourself up at night, because I've had a business that failed, right? So if you're going to beat yourself up at night, I've been there, right? I understand the pressure. I understand the 3 a.m. when nobody else is around, sat there having to reach for a book to try and distract yourself or whatever, right? So I've been there, right?
Podcast
Distract
whatever,
you,
right? Keep your voice.
If you're
out,
willing to beat yourself up and still have that regret or whatever you're feeling in the past, you've got to be in a position to also say, actually, like where I am now.
Yeah, I don't really regret any of it. It's all happened, and there were learnings from it. And yeah, every day is another day.
I was close to ask that question to say, like, if you could go through it again and be where you are now, would you?
Yeah, I suppose. Because I never think about yesterday. I can't remember yesterday.
Yeah.
I can't remember an argument I had 10 minutes ago. I'm all about tomorrow. It's always, and that's not always a good thing.
So saying it's always about moving forward and...
Yeah, I have.
But that 3-month period of not getting open till Boxing Day, I imagine there's quite a bit.
I went through years of hell. I would, I would wake up in the morning or through the night, and I would have electricity like pulsing across my chest, and I was waiting for it was hell. It really was, but it was just my life at the time. And yeah, I don't miss it, but it was my life. I had no choice. I just had to keep going.
Yeah.
But it was horrific.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For periods, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but yeah, no regrets. Tomorrow's a better day. Tomorrow,
No, thanks for sharing it. It is really, really good to hear the challenges.
I just honestly think that, like, anybody who thinks they can do anything in life without having these types of issues, if you're not willing to take the risks, because you took a risk to change your life, right? You took a risk and it didn't work out, but you took it because you read this book and you wanted to do this 4-hour work week, and you weren't happy with your situation, so you took the risk and it's not gone well. But fast forward 5 years to today, and you're in a much better position. So even though that particular risk didn't go, you then took more risk.
Because the other option is you can be stable and not take any risk.
Yeah, there's people who are static.
You just have the furniture,
static and miserable.
The furniture business as it was, staying as it was, and it does not sound from your personality you'd be able to do that. So you could have been safe and stable and a reasonable amount of salary or whatever from that business and still been in the same position. It's a little bit like, you could have a job that pays a reasonable amount, you just stay there forever and you're safe and whatever.
The thing that always gets me is anybody who's in property or any business life, or anybody who's getting themselves there, they are always trying to get started. People say things like, I'm willing to take risks, but this is what risk looks like.
Yeah.
Right? It goes wrong. When something goes wrong and that risk comes to bite you, you are the person that is going to have to go and move forwards and then recover and get to another position. That separates the men from the boys, in my opinion.
But it really does change you, and you really do learn from it, which you wouldn't have otherwise.
I think you probably... I'm a much better businessman now than I was then.
Yeah, 100%.
Something that I said at the time was, when I decided to make all of these changes within that business, was that I'd understood that really when you're starting a new business, your aim should be to make it fail. Because so many people, they start a business, it doesn't go, you can't write a business plan that doesn't fail. And they start it, it doesn't work, and they end up going, well, next year, Rodney, it'll be better next year. And they just end up stuck in the business. So I decided to apply that logic to an established business that had been around changed a lot, but had been around for 30 years. And I said, I'm going to try to make this fail. It's either going to work and it's going to be great. And all of my, not my dreams will come true, but I'll be able to have financial freedom, or it won't. Now, I honestly didn't think it was going to fail because I'm very optimistic.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it to continue as it was, where it was sort of steady, some ups, some downs.
That's very much my point before, as I said, you could have just kept it at that level. And
I think that's a bigger failure.
Yeah, that's my point.
Staying still.
Yeah.
I think if you're not happy and you stay still and you're not willing to do something about it, that's a bigger failure than trying something and it not working out.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah. One of the people that we talk about, Rob Moore, says that if you don't risk anything, you risk everything, because you're just staying there. You're not moving forward. And I personally can't live that way, but it can be the safe and secure way and not have these major challenges and traumas. But ultimately, you're not really moving up or forward, are you?
No.
Right. So last of our main questions anyway is, what's the best bit of advice you've had from anyone, say a mentor or a colleague or whatever? What's the best bit of advice you've had in your journey?
I don't think I can't really think of anything that anybody's actually told me specifically.
Yeah.
But through all of the literally hundreds of books that I've read over the last few years, I think one that I always, a Rob Moore one, your network is your net worth. And I don't know if that's good advice.
Tony Robbins, that, you know.
Is it Tony Robbins?
Yeah, because Simon Zucci ripped it as well.
Yeah, I mean, everyone
I think
uses
it's
it,
Tony
so I don't know where
he
it
might have got it from
originates.
somewhere.
I don't know where it originates, but everyone uses it.
Yeah, and so it's not really advice, but that's what I've found, what I've done over the last 2 or 3 years. I didn't really have a network.
Yeah.
And I've put myself out there into lots of different mastermind groups and gone on Property Entrepreneur with a great group of people there. And that the network that I've now got, it's like, Tim, you helped me out when I was really struggling with valuations. Your experience cut through a lot of crap to get to understand exactly what I needed to do to get a commercial valuation. Who the valuer was, how to get the lender on side, all of those things. And yeah, I know somebody, Umesh, that we both know.
Yeah.
When I needed some money quite quickly last year, I spoke to Umesh and he said, just ask. And I was very pleasantly surprised that when I asked people, there are lots of people out there with money, and I felt kind of quite humble when they offered it to me. But without asking,
it's difficult to ask for it, isn't it? And especially I know for British society, people are very reserved about talking about money or in any way, let alone asking for it for a loan.
But it's also really, it's humbling and it's gratifying that people trust you, and believe in you that that you're going to pay them back, and then when you do pay them back, then it makes
a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, a really good feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you say about network, obviously we met in the Property Entrepreneur Network, and we've helped each other. Me and Phil met in the Property Investor Network, and that's become a really good partnership. Some of our other funders, lenders, clients, joint venture partnerships, we've all met in good networks, and we've all helped each other. We've all helped each other in numerous ways. So yeah, 100% agree with that.
All our joint venture partners, all of them networked.
Yeah. And then from those people, we then have referrals that end up being clients, when references and all these sort of things. So it expands even from your close network, expands out to the network that grows with you. So
that's a great one.
Yeah, that's really, really good.
That, now, if I've got a question that I don't have the answer to, I know somebody who's got the answer. And I really couldn't say that a few years ago.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. You don't have to know everything, but you can always know, you need to know people that know overall the things that you need to know.
I think the entrepreneurs get lost in that as well, because people talk about having a power team and they talk about accountants, they talk about, like for us, it's project managers and architects. Your best power team are the people who are trying to do and have done the same thing that you're trying to do in the leadership role.
Yeah.
And the entrepreneurs around you, they're your best power team because they do have the answers, because they've probably been through the pain.
Yeah.
And or know somebody who's been through the pain.
Or literally look at someone that's achieved what you're trying to achieve in the next few years. And
so if you're not
get in touch with them.
Because if you're not even willing to go and speak to those people and spend time with them in the networks that they're in, then you are on your own. You're a solopreneur. You're not an entrepreneur, in my opinion.
I think on that as well, that learning to talk to people and ask open-ended questions has been a huge, to develop relationships. I've just been reading Super Communicators, and I've sort of found that I'm doing a lot of the...
Is that to get more info out of people and learn more from people? What do you mean by that?
To build a relationship with someone, then I think that quite often you might say to somebody, you meet somebody and say, oh, what do you do for work? And they say, oh, I'm a joiner, or I'm an accountant, or whatever. But then if you then ask them, do you like doing that? How does it make you feel? What would you, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? Then suddenly you go from a rigid, I'm an accountant, to you get an open conversation, and you can start both talking about things, and you get to know each other very, very quickly, and see if this, and you're just shortcutting, sometimes, you might have to have, if you have those, go to networking and you say, oh, I do this, how many kids have you got, whatever.
Yeah.
Then it takes a long time to build a relationship. If you start asking deeper questions, and I think I did this, I learned this with taxi drivers, that I was just sat there, when we lived in Spain, I was to and from the airport, and I'm like, well, I can either sit next to this person or, listen to a podcast, or actually there's somebody there with a life experience that I've never had. Most of them are like Bangladeshi or Pakistani, and I learned all sorts about Mecca and partition and things like that. And they're just this wealth of a life.
It is great, actually, because what you're saying is it does work both ways as well. So you can ask the question that gets that sort of answer. But I always think of it now, if someone goes like, what do you do? Instead of just saying, oh, I'm your property, I say what we do is we help people achieve and maintain financial freedom. It's a complete different answer to like what I do on it. It's a little bit more interesting. And also that is our mission, our vision, our purpose. So rather than just saying property or property developer, you know, it's more about why and your purpose of doing it in a way as well. So it creates more discussion.
Yeah, just having open discussions with people.
I spoke to literally a taxi driver the other day who'd only been in the country for a couple of months, but his wife has a tenanted property.
Right.
And I just asked him, I was asking him questions, open-ended questions. And by the end of that process, he'd taken my number and he rang me. And he rang me about which section note, because they wanted to move back into this property because she was pregnant and it was a bigger house. They were living in a smaller house while this property was rented out. What steps he needed to take back the property, how long it was going to take, and that kind of thing. I'm just like, right, so if you go to the .gov website, it's this section notice and you need to provide that. Obviously, contact the tenants, let them know. Make sure you reserve all the documents in X, Y, and these 5 documents. Make sure you reserve all them at the same time as your notice. And this is a taxi driver. You know, you never know, you know, what's going to come from conversations like that ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was lovely, by the way. Yeah, really lovely guy.
I think actually at the end of that, then probably what's one of the most important things that I've learned is that once upon a time I would, if somebody didn't like the Washington Redskins and the Stone Roses, then, well, you're not like me. And so... so why do I need to talk to you? You don't have the same interests.
Well, in this city, it's either you're a blue or a red. So some people that are blues, or they won't talk to the Reds. That's it.
Manchester, which team?
Yeah, that's the first question a lot of people ask.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, I'm not from this country. I am a City fan because, you know, my wife's family is, but I'm certainly never thought I'd never talk to someone because of United. But people do stop talking to you when you say that.
50% of the podcast listeners just turned off at that point.
Yeah. We can edit that out, can't we?
Yeah.
I suppose it was just about, as opposed to seeing points of difference like that, see what you've got in common with someone. Yeah. Because everybody's got something in common and you just get to know and understand so many people and then helping those people. So yeah, being able to go out of your way
back to people is what you mean. Like,
yeah. Shall we?
Yeah. So, right. So we have a couple of bonus rounds. So the first one is which we will ask you as well, is to a question left by a previous guest. So this one that they left is, if you could choose anyone, dead or alive, to live within a HMO, which is good relevance to you actually, who would it be and why?
I'm not sure how many beds I need in this HMO, but what I first thought was that we need somebody to cook. So probably have Gordon Ramsay in.
Right, good one.
A bit of banter in there. Somebody needs to cook. We need somebody to clean. So I thought maybe Marie Kondo, the Japanese cleaning tidiness guru. Thought she'd be good. I think one of the most interesting books I've read in the last 10 years is it's called Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. Incredible guy. He talks about things like all about marketing. But he says, if you're having a board meeting to try and design or come up with an idea for a brand that's going to be the biggest or one of the biggest drink brands in the world, what you wouldn't do is say, let's make it expensive. Let's put it in small packages and let's make it taste like shit. But Red Bull have been extremely successful doing that because basically they're selling a drug. Small packages, taste like shit, very expensive. And so they've promoted a drug instead of a drink. And so Rory Sutherland's all about coming from a complete opposite point of view. So I'd highly recommend that.
Well, when the iPhone was released, it was not about the phone, it was about the experience and the community and you being different. And then that became the norm.
But also it's brand association, isn't it? Because when I think Red Bull, I didn't even picture the drink. I was thinking of Max Verstappen in his F1 car, basically.
Yeah. It's grim. Red Bull is grim. It is all.
I think I've drunk it before,
Sorry,
but I don't even think about it as a drink. But obviously there's a sport association with Red Bull that must influence a lot of sales.
Got a couple of other
Great. So
people.
we've got a Minimo. Are we going up to a 5 or 6 bed here?
Yeah, well, I think we've got. I think need to have Lance Armstrong in there.
Right.
Just one of the most driven people imaginable.
So that's probably a wider topic, but are you a big fan of Lance Armstrong or?
Yeah, I think he's incredible. I think, and there is so many levels with him. So he won 7 Tour de France's, which were all taken away from him.
Yeah.
And yes,
Which he says that he was taking drugs, but everyone was taking drugs. So
Everybody
it was
was-
a level playing field in a way, which
that's the way I see it. I watched those live, and I was just in
Someone
awe
took the
of
fall.
guy.
he took the fall because he won him.
But he was at that point he was evil, and I'd love to be able to talk to him about. So on the one hand, he's this incredible athlete. On the other hand, he's created one of the biggest charities in the world. Everybody has got a yellow wristband on, Live Strong, and because of that, he had to lie and lie and lie, and then he sued people and tried to bankrupt people
Because he was trying to protect
because
that
he was.
brand.
Well, I don't know,
Or the
really.
charity. Maybe,
But yeah, such a driven person. And eventually, all of that collapsed, and he's had to reinvent himself. And now he can be open about everything. So I just, I don't
It'd
think
be an interesting conversation, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with that one.
David McWilliams, the best podcast that I listen to, I think, about economics.
Right. You need to give that one a try. I haven't listened to that.
No, neither right.
So David McWilliams, he's an Irish economist. He has a festival called Kilkenomics, where he gets economists and comedians together in Kilkenny once a year,
Right.
3 days, crazy venues. But he has travelled more. He tells every episode. He just talks about all of his travels, all of his experiences. He used to work at JP Morgan, and it's all about. He talks of to understand the economy, you need to understand human nature, and so he brings human nature and geography and religion and rolls it all into one with just tells incredible stories. And I'm gonna get bored of listening to him.
Yeah, I'm
very good.
adding that to my list. I'll check it out.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. That sounds like might be interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely interested in that.
Right, so moving on to our final bonus round then. So we asked you to prepare a question for each of us. What have you come up with?
Well, for Phil, in your experience, how important is the concept of enough when it comes to wealth building and financial freedom? Do you believe people often overshoot their goals in pursuit of money? And what does enough mean to you?
Yeah, so, well, what a great question. I don't want to deflect away from enough. I think that what happens is that you reach a goal, or you may not even have a goal, right? You might have started to do something and you haven't measured it in some way, and then you reach a position and you get comfortable and you think, I need another position. Or you've got a goal, and then the natural thing is to set a goal, the next goal. I would always say to anybody, and this is not me in the first 18 years of my experience, by the way, this is me today, because in 18 years, all I was doing is trying to grow, corporate ladder, international business, get to director level, everything be better when I get to the next level. And then, in property, we are growing all the time, is that it's not necessarily about enough, it's about the journey. Mm-hmm. It's not about where you get to or what the goal is. It's about enjoying the time that you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't necessarily enjoy a lot of the time in that 18 years. And now I'm I'm going to try and enjoy that time. So, and then if the enough is your goal, then what are you going to do then to enjoy your time? Because what a lot of people make the mistake is when they reach that goal, if it's financial goal, they then say, right, well, I'm just going to move the financial goal. Because probably especially if you've enjoyed what you've been doing, they say, right, I'm just going to move the financial goal and do the same again. But with growth comes problems quite a lot, especially in property and in business. Whereas if you stayed the same there and found another goal to push towards, then that might be a better option for you. So enough should always be when you set the goal for enough. You should actually have this is the right revenue level for me from this. The second thing is purpose and struggle, right? So I'll talk about this because this is one of the things that I firmly believe in. Like struggle is where it's at, right? We are designed to struggle as a species. You know, when we were sat around campfires and chasing down wildebeest a long time before.
I'm just thinking about people sitting on the settees,
Exactly.
watching Netflix at the moment, though.
But what
Are you calling that a struggle or not?
I think well, so I think you're going to have struggle doing that. I think if you're sat around doing that and you don't have something as a goal or something to provide you with purpose,
struggle, you know.
yeah, then you are going to struggle in the wrong way. And the way I define it is struggle with purpose is living, struggle without purpose is dying. And I genuinely believe that you are designed to struggle, and having that purpose helps you focus and gives you that journey. And if you can focus on the journey and why you're doing something and have that purpose, then I don't think enough is a thing. I think you actually just continue to move forwards and enjoy that journey. So I'm going to turn that on its head a little bit, say, well, you can have financial goals. Of course you can. But our goal isn't financial. Our goal is to help as many people achieve financial freedom as possible and maintain it. You know, that's our goal. But where does that end? What is enough? It's not financial. You know, it's because we want to create that community of people that we're on the journey with. That's it.
Yeah, well, I think, for me, enough is, I've probably, financially, I've almost got more than enough. And having enough money to pay the bills and be able to do I'll sort of feel quite guilty soon about having more money than I can spend. And I want to use some of that money to start charities to help people.
Well, there you go. It just changes the purpose.
That's purpose, yeah.
Yeah, it just changes the purpose, and that's the thing. At the moment, you had your purpose was, I can't buy a coffee at Greg's. I need to sort my life out, and I need to. The same. I've been there, and you have to move forwards, and you've moved forwards really well, and now you can't. Like that guilty feeling is a natural for a lot of people. When you have more than you need, it is. Especially if you stop believing that you're moving forwards in that environment. So, but to reset your purpose to do what you're talking about there, that's similar to ours. We could turn everything off tomorrow and just say, right, okay, we'll just sit back and live off our property. I would go mental, like within a very short space of time. I cannot do that. It's having a purpose.
I think with the enough for me, I know this is Phil's question, but I'll just give my quick analogy. So I think there's two enough monetary values. So financial freedom to me is like enough, say, from property investments that you don't have to work a job that you don't want to work. So that's how I think of that enough. And then the other one is have assets that are more like the most passive sort of assets. So that's what I would say the financial independence is that you said. So they're two enough figures. But then, like you said, when I was first looking at that, I just thought, okay, I got all this time, I just retire, I travel around the world or whatever. But actually, I couldn't think of it. Like, I really wouldn't want to do that now. Not that I couldn't think any worse, but like not full time, because it doesn't give you that purpose. And it's like you said, the purpose is almost more important, isn't it?
I couldn't do a gap year of traveling. I couldn't do it. It would drive me up the wall. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And for me, I could absolutely do that, because I think that, so I've never done anything for the monetary reward, and what drives me is to solve problems, really. I enjoy solving problems. So when I've got enough, then I'll still want to solve problems, and some of those are going to be business related problems. But I'm thinking that I can replace the business problems with the problem of learning how to climb or learning how to sail.
Perfect.
Learning how to windsurf. And I also get the same sort
you do
of
all in
buzz.
North Wales, actually. You just go there now. Like.
I've got some wellies.
Yeah. That's it.
No, dry suits.
Yeah, and like you said, instead of the focus on business, you focus on the charity, which it's a similar sort of thing. It gives you a similar sort of purpose, doesn't it? Or more of a purpose in that circumstance, if you really find the meaning in what you're doing and enjoy it.
I do think it's the journey. I think it's enjoying the journey, like that journey to learning to windsurf. Does that mean you're going to become an avid windsurfer? Well, maybe. You might love it that much. You might stick with it, or you might learn to windsurf and then move on to another goal. You might then move on to rock climbing or something. But you have the time to do it. Mm-hmm. So resetting your goals and just having that time is I think that's so impactful.
Yeah, great question. All right, and then the final one.
Well, the final one we've kind of covered, really. So it was directed at you, obviously. Do you think that you're a lucky person? How much do you do you attribute your success and financial freedom to luck versus skill? And how do you think that belief has influenced your mindset and the decisions along the way? So we kind of covered.
Yeah, we
this,
talked a
haven't
little
we?
bit about that earlier, but I'll try and expand as best as possible. But I don't think there's a such thing as a lucky person. I do believe that there are lucky breaks or lucky events that happen as a result. So I would say, from what I've achieved, all of it is because I got educated in the stuff I wanted to. I surrounded myself with the people that I should. I networked with lots of different people, and I met, some really good people, and I took action, serious action. And I had a plan and I implemented it. And then during that process, there are events that were lucky. And I don't know if there was unlucky, but then there was also things that went wrong. So yeah, by doing those things, there were events that were lucky events that happened, or things that wouldn't have happened otherwise because I did those things and put myself in that position.
I think there's a lottery of life as well. I think the base luck that you get is where you're born,
Yes.
how you're brought up, and then what you do with that. I think that's the base luck.
So we're all in the top.
I wouldn't want to put my
5%
ticket back
of-
into the lottery of life, But at the same time, we say that, but then if you look at the ikigais of this world, some of the happiest people in the world aren't in that group.
Yeah, so
they're
sometimes
in a community where they're serving people.
there are some people that are, born into really lucky, affluent circumstances, but that works against them because it's
Yeah.
almost like a curse. Similar people that are born, like, I would say what we were sort of middle class, society we're born into, that can be a curse for some people as well because they're just comfortable. And then there's other people who are born, in a harsher circumstance or more deprived circumstance that have really changed things.
So some of the most unhappy people are the ones born to wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they have no purpose.
So obviously
Right.
if you had a range of like, that's hard. It's hard to be born here. It's easy to be born here. You can be born anywhere in that circumstance.
There's a Goldilocks zone.
Is that, yeah. And then whatever you make of it or your mindset towards it is where you move in that line, is what I think.
It's finding a purpose, in whatever.
And obviously where we live,
great question.
I do think you've got the opportunity in the country that we live in, where I was born, to
It's
do that.
opportunity, yeah,
It's
absolutely.
opportunity. Some places,
Being born in the
obviously,
UK is
obviously
is an
some
absolute
places
privilege.
it's a lot more difficult regardless, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think the opportunity is there as long as you have the right, you just go out and do it, and you've got the mindset to do it.
Lovely. Right then.
Cool.
So we wrap up?
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for coming along. So just to finish then, is that if people want to get in touch with you, or if there's anything you want to promote for yourself or anything like that, how can people find you?
Really, I'm not on social media or anything like that.
Love
Sorry,
I love that.
just not there. I do exist. You can probably find me, but if you send me a message, I'll see it sometime in November, I would guess. But you can, happy to talk to anyone. Drop me an email. Put it in the show notes.
So
I guess.
we'll put your email in
Yeah.
the show notes, should we?
Yeah, but happy to talk to anyone about anything and help as much as I can.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you very much for coming on. Really great to have you.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.